I think what artists do is open different portals, opens up also to the worlds of terror. To understand, when you look at a Goya painting, it makes us understand that that time is not different from this time. It's just that the technology is different. But the rage, the fear, the anger, the terror are similar. That's human, right? It makes us understand that we are not just an entity on our own, that haven't learned from our histories. It makes us understand the repetitions over time. It makes us understand the ways in which material can be modeled, shifted, transformed. And so even a little kid can enter that portal and understand what's going on and can learn from it and and expand on its sensuality on materials or on its intensity on a material. And that's what art does. So my name is Otobong Nkanga, but actually the right way to pronounce it is Otobong Nkanga. So this is the first time I'm really pronouncing my name properly in an interview. And it's an Ibibio name, and it means Otobong, a gift from God to fill emptiness. That's Nkanga. And I'm an artist, and I work with different mediums. I'm very much interested in thinking through how materials can be put forth, can be worked, manipulated, transformed, but how also the ideas we have to find the right kinds of material to bring out the concepts, the ideas, the emotions. And so experimenting with different mediums like performances, voice work, installations, sculptures, photography, textile work, weaving textile, making soap, looking at support structures, looking at architectures, and finding ways in which all these ideas can take form is quite exciting and a nice way to start being in this world and experimenting in this world. So I would say my work touches many areas and many ideas, but I would say the core would be really to think of how do things connect us? How are we connected to things? How are we working in the landscapes we live in? How are we managing and experimenting with materials that we encounter every day? But I would say architecture would be one of the core ways of thinking. Looking at political and social events would be a way to, and histories would be a way to also enter the work. And also thinking of how can we find ways of thinking about remediation, care, and find ways of connecting our histories together, because most times we're always thinking that our histories are so disconnected from one another, but actually each different culture has informed the other. So I'm interested in understanding that. So these are 3 photographic works, it's a triptych. And this work is called Alterscape Stories, Uprooting the Past. And I made this work after my visit to Fuerteventura. And it was my first time really feeling a specific kind of landscape, a landscape that has been formed by erupting volcanoes, a little island, no, not a little, a big island, that felt totally overwhelming because the mountains are so high and you feel so little in such a landscape. But at the same time, when you go through this landscape, you start seeing how, man designs and shapes it at the same time. And so the thought of altering the landscape came into mind, that it would be interesting to be able to make a work that connects the body to this landscape, but the body becomes the bigger picture. So we can think of our forests, we can think of, crazy landscapes that we imagine that how would anybody manage to carve this hard rock in this huge in this huge area, but we get to realize that man is able to do that. It's able to move a mountain if they need to. It's able to cut through rocks, make tunnels. And so that altering of the landscape was the first part of thinking of the work. But the second part was also visiting the site where I would exhibit, and it used to be a colonial military house where all the military officers would stay in. But they had also the servants' quarters, which were at the back. And at that point in time, there was a discussion about actually erasing or taking down the servants' quarters, but keeping the colonial houses. So it was quite interesting to think how within the histories we live in, let's say in 20, 30 years, if someone goes there, they would actually be looking at a house that is, they would only be getting a part of history, not the full history. And so I decided to make a work where you see the houses, the body actually uprooting the servant's house. But within the triptych, the idea was also to create that notion of the first formation, which is the rocks and the mountains, the second formation, which is man shifting the landscape, the hand taking out this house, and the third formation, which is the future, where we have now maybe skyscrapers being planted in the glass houses, but at the same time there's a part of a mountain where the smoke starts coming out to remind us that all this can go away again, because once the mountain awakens and the lava start moving and the smokes, that we know that at one point in time it might erupt and it might cleanse again and get rid of what is there. It's almost, I was really looking at also classical paintings to also understand. You always have this old, like the triptychs, and you might have like a skull at the back reminding you of death, that there's still the possibility of you're not going to live eternally, you're not mortal. And so the work refers also to this classic paintings in a way, refers to land and the shift in land and the transformation in land, but also the erasure of memory, the fragmentations of landscape and shift in the way of like
and on and on and on and on.
Connecting the way we understand things. Yeah.
This is what was promised, a place where I could stay. This is what was promised, a place where I can't move. This is what was promised.
Until I was perfectly mixed with the sand and the gravel, and then they threw me out. They leave me to solidify in the air, and slowly I harden.
So the sculpture piece is it's a combination of two concrete balls of about 42 centimeter diameter, and they both have sound speakers, and they're talking to each other. There are many ways of like looking at the work, ideo, or even if we look at alterscapes and the relationship of memory and identity, of belonging to a place. And so we can have someone that feels like they belong to somewhere, not necessarily the place that their family comes from, or not necessarily the place that they feed from, but a longing to be elsewhere and to belong elsewhere, and you can identify with that. And I don't directly enter into identity with the work, but I feel that it looms within that. It looms, it's a very tricky place of thinking, of where do I belong, how do I belong, and do I have multiple belongings? Is it because of what I'm made of, that's my identity, or could it be a shell of what you think I am? So there are many questions, and then what is projected upon you? So I project on the concrete ball that it's concrete. But at the same time, maybe the concrete itself is thinking, I'm not. I'm just sand. I'm this. I'm actually fragmented. I'm mixed. I'm maybe a kind of mixed thing because I'm more sand than I'm gravel. I think the moment that I really decided I would like to do the things I was doing, like drawing at home or making work, even though I didn't consider, I just had fun and I was in a space where I could dream, but dream with doing, like you're dreaming and you're doing. And that was like at the age of 11, and at that point in time, I was in, we were in Paris, and so my art teacher would make us visit museums. So we would go to the Louvre, we would go to Musée Rodin, Picasso, and there was also Caravaggio, and there was a Georges de la Tour, and these were paintings that the first thing that fascinated me was their dexterity of making. Like, how do you make a work with like light falling so beautifully on that skin? And there was also Georges de la Tour's softness, and there were many things that were just like, you're standing there and you're looking at the work and you're taken by the beauty of the work, and then you're taken later on by like you start asking questions. Why are they playing cards, or what are they doing, so I will put it in that way, that a work, there's not just one way. I would like my work to touch others. I think of the aesthetic that I'm putting into the work. What draws you in the first place? And could they be layers that you could enter through the work? So you could look at it from a point of view that I like it. It's beautiful. I love the colors. And then for other people, it's like, what is this person? Why is this person like this? Why is she in black? What's this house? That's questions. And hopefully it will allow for the person maybe to enter the work, think about it, maybe think about landscape, maybe think about different things. But my main aim is that the work is not just a flat, neutral zone. It's not just something that it should be able to touch. It should be able to talk. It should be able to, we talk about the projectile and the subjectile, that it should be able to project through within the subject, and ask questions, and hopefully it can maybe influence someone to think in a different way, and that person has the power to shift a little something for someone, for a place, for a thing. That's it.